Been waiting all day to do that.
It hasn't gone away yet.
Oh, good. All right. Today is the day of the regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners for October 2020. First item on the agenda is the approval minutes of the last meeting.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? We can just pull up. Okay. Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next up is approval of September bills.
I move we accept as presented.
I move to approve as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Commissioner Morgan,
Aye.
Commissioner Dawson,
Aye.
Commissioner Deutsch,
Aye.
Commissioner Rosted,
Yes.
Commissioner Griggs.
Aye. Sorry, you looked uninterested, so I said, we'll just keep rolling. All right, any changes to the agenda?
No changes, Madam President.
I move we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Recognition of audience. You're our only guest. Welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Director's report.
The only thing I have to report is what I mentioned in our recap on Friday was just that we did sign our purchase agreement with Epic Companies. So that was a big step forward, and we currently have 2 standing meetings each week regarding, just continuing the process of the park and also design process of that park. So I think everybody's excited to work with Epic Companies and all their staff, and we look forward to, big things out there. Currently, we've met a little bit internally as staff and kind of working through some site design on our portion of that property for Tharaldson Anderson, and trying to, we met with Legion last week, Post 2, so we're trying to see how we can work with them and Post 400 along with Fargo Youth Baseball and try to make that, kind of a showcase centerpiece for baseball and Fargo. So, yeah, everything's going well, everybody's excited, and I think Epic's excited as well, but that's all I have. Yeah.
Are there, I just had remembered that there were some other things that the park was going to do with the plaza, West Fargo, some other locations. I don't suppose you've started discussing that yet.
I mean how all the plazas will kind of coordinate together?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Anna's here and she's working on some contracts for our Broadway Square Plaza, but she's been in contact with Epic Companies and West Fargo Events, and they're kind of coordinating, what all the plazas can do together. Each one's going to have their own little feel and do some things differently, but there's a lot of things that they might share and just do different dates. It might be craft fairs, farmers markets, food trucks, just like that, but Anna's a great job just with all the different plazas around town. That's Brian. Who's actually cool.
Take it again.
Who's partying on the outside line?
Speaking of,
Brian can't hear us.
Brian. Oh, you
It
can't.
was not me.
I can hear you now.
Okay,
You guys hear me?
we can hear you.
We heard the rock concert in the background too.
Yeah, through the miracle of a millennial living in my house, I'm now connected.
Thank
Okay,
you.
perfect timing. It's Foundation Director's report time.
Well, good evening, everybody. I apologize for not being there. I miss you all, but tonight just isn't the night. So first of all, with the foundation, we had a very successful golf tournament. The foundation golf tournament number 3, 3rd annual. And I believe the overall winner was the Air Vinegar Barb Jansen team. who golfed some ungodly number under par. I mean, I don't know what it was, but they had the best score. I think we have 14 teams overall, and the weather was off the charts incredible. We were very fortunate. We hit the perfect weather for that event. We had a nice socially distanced, safe social afterwards, outdoors. That went very well. So a good time was had by all. We're looking at dates for next year, of course. Want to do something in the spring and really want to turn that event into a fundraiser as well as a friend raiser. So we'll be rolling that out through the foundation board over the next few months to kind of talk about what the format will be in 2021. And speaking of the foundation, the next foundation board meeting is on Monday at 1:30 in the room that you're sitting in. We have a new fundraising assistant. Her name is Lexi Swenson. Some of you may have gotten some communication from her, but she is helping us kind of do a little bit better job of putting our records together in a more understandable way. So we're excited to have her. Speaking of millennials, she's a millennial and has all the skills that younger people have. So it's going to help us to do a little bit better job of tracking what we do. And I'm not sure there's anything else from the Fargo Park District Foundation standpoint. VSS, of course, continues to be busy. Still doing all of our meals in a takeout or home delivered fashion, doing about 1,200 meals a day. We are switching over to Concordia College on November 2nd. They're going to start doing meals for the nutrition program in Fargo. So I had a meeting today with NDSU and Concordia, kind of coordinating the handoff between the two of them, and we're excited. We're cautiously optimistic. We think it's going to work very well. They are working well with us in terms of menu development, of course, which is really the important thing, you know, when it comes to doing a nutrition program. So we're going to try to plan an event before the end of this month with the staff at NDSU to thank them for 49 years of tremendous service to the seniors of the community. So stay tuned. We'll let you know what the format for that ends up being. And with that, I think my report's done.
Hey, Brian,
Yes.
are you looking for drivers, delivery people?
We're always looking for volunteers. And if you're interested in volunteering to help deliver Meals on Wheels Monday through Friday about 11 o'clock in the morning, call that all-important number 293-1440. Let us know if you want to help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions for Brian? Number 7. We're to consider for approval proposed procurement policy number 390.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. So in your packet is a draft procurement policy. So this policy is an update to our current policy 390. Just includes some additional details on different centric codes we're required to follow, some different approval thresholds that we're following. So we did discuss this policy in depth at the facilities committee meeting. I'll just on to each section briefly, give you an overview and answer any questions you guys have. So this first section, 1 through 6, basically just outlines the different thresholds and the different approval requirements that are required for each threshold. So purchases up to $5,000 can be made by anybody with purchasing authority. Just ensure that the purchase is made at the best value possible, and anything above $750 would require director approval. Purchases for $5,001 to $10,000 would require a minimum of 2 informal quotes. Quotes would document the date, vendor, vendor's contact person, price, and then department director approval is required on those as well. Purchases from $10,000 to $50,000 would require written specifications, minimum of 3 informal quotes, the same documentation requirements, All those purchases would be approved by the department director and then myself. Any requests for written quotes and specifications must be approved by the department director. Number 5, there are some instances where we might not have multiple informal quotes available. So in those instances, and the bullet points are kind of laid out there, but a sole source justification can be used. So in those instances, we would not require multiple quotes. And then number 6 is basically you can't break down a purchase to artificially get below a threshold. So you can't purchase something for $1,000 and just make 2 $500 payments to avoid director approval. So that's still a $1,000 purchase, it still requires director approval. The next section is state cooperative purchasing agreement. So OMB has a purchase agreement. They negotiate multiple contracts throughout the year. If you go to their website, there's a long listing of contracts that we have available to us. They basically do the bidding work for us. So it's all their agreements are worded through open, full competition. So if we purchase anything off of these contracts that indicate it's a cooperative agreement, we are not required to get informal quotes. Next section is contracts exceeding $50,000. So this is something that we're following currently. Just basically outlining what are we following. What century code is it that we're following. In this instance, it's section 40, 49, 14 of century code. Any bids must be reviewed by the staff, executive director, recommendations then presented to the board. The park board commissioners award the contract to the lowest responsible bidder. And then there's a couple of emergency provisions in there. So similar to like what we follow for FEMA for the flooding. If the board declares an emergency situation, we're not required to follow bidding thresholds. So one difference between this, the packet on the screen and the packet here in front of you is number 1. So how it's laid out on the screen is kind of how we're following it. How I typed it up in the packet in front of you. It basically implied that we'd have to come to you guys for approval before. So we'd have to come approval before, get approval to go and seek bids, and then we bring the bids back to you after the fact. That wasn't the intent when I wrote it, and it wasn't really clear in how the wording I had. So I made some adjustments to number 1. So basically it's the process that we're following now. We'll go through, we'll get bids, we'll bring all the information, file it, bring it back to you, and make the recommendation to move forward. There may be instances where we do bring it to you on the front end, but the majority of them, a lot of them is going to be equipment type purchases where it doesn't make sense, just an extra step to bring it to you before it's authorized to go to see bids. Next section is public improvement projects over 200,000. Again, it's something that we're following. It's just documenting what century code we're following. So any public improvement projects over $200,000, we need to publish them for 3 consecutive weeks. There's certain contents of the bids that need to be included. For the bids, we need to break it down between general, electrical, and mechanical. Your bids are approved by our architects, engineers, staff, executive director. Bring the recommendation to the board. We'll have a bid opening date that's specified in the advertisement. And then there's emergency situation declaration there as well, just same as the previous section. And then number 7, basically just there could be projects that do not exceed $200,000, but it's still in our best interest to go and get an architect or engineer. We have the ability to do that. So that's it for that section. These last 3 are basically just outlining staff expectations. So for the financial budget expenditure accounts and quoting standards, just make sure you're using the accounts that were approved in the budget. Make sure that they're in budget available to make purchases. Capital asset purchases for anything over $5,000, there's certain criteria we need to track. We need to tag it. So basically, there's another form that we need to fill out, an asset inventory sheet, which includes all that information, and we track within our financials. And the last section is just internal controls and purchasing approval process. So basically just stating the importance of the approvals and that by signing and approving these, you're ensuring that the budget's available and that you're following the procurement policy. Well, that's all that I have for the procurement policy. If you have any questions, I can answer them at this time.
How do you determine who has the authority to sign off on expenses?
For the most part, it's our full-time staff. So the majority of the full-time staff all have the authority. A lot of them, majority of the time, they'll get a purchasing card. So at that point, they're given the authority to make purchases.
Okay.
So it's generally just the part-time staff that aren't allowed.
And you think this policy is not too strict, but strict enough to keep the checks and balances, but not tie your hands too much?
I think so. A lot of it's stuff that we're already doing. It just wasn't documented, and a lot of it was pulled from other entities around the state. I think it's definitely something that where changes need to be made, we need to do it.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thanks, Chris.
So if I understand correctly, we didn't really have a policy in place for procurement?
Not really. So procurement goes to the next
If
page.
you scroll down further, you'll see this previous one,
Oh,
Jerry.
okay.
So that's what we have. This is just kind of documenting the different authoritative guidance century code that we're required to follow.
But we still did follow all the bidding requirements and everything per century code. It's just that now Tyson's put it all together in one.
Well, I think it's great to have a policy that outlines that. I think it's very important. That's good. I like it.
Well, it's updated. Did you see the red line version?
Not a line's left.
Not a line made it, not even the title.
It was efficient though.
It appears this time.
We have e-cards, stack up e-cards.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
All right, I will move to approve the policy as presented.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Jeff Goldberg?
Commissioner Morgan,
Aye.
Commissioner Dawson,
Aye.
Commissioner Deutsch,
Aye.
Commissioner Rosted,
Yeah.
Commissioner Griggs.
Aye. Motion carried. Number 8, board to consider for approval agreement with Tri-City United Soccer Club. Kevin Bull, presenter.
So can you hear me?
Ah,
All right. Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, Commissioners. So in your packet is the agreement with Tri-City United Soccer Club. Tri-City and United merged organizations in August. So this agreement really addresses the name change to Tri-City United Soccer Club. The agreement was put together by our attorney, Thad Swanson, been reviewed by Peter from Tri-City Soccer Club and presented at the Facilities Committee with recommend to bring to the board for approval. So it's pretty generic agreement, but I'll answer any questions that you may have.
I'll ask the $1 million question. Why are we involved in the merger of the two soccer clubs?
Because they use our facilities, so specifically at the Pepsi Soccer Complex, they run our concession area that we've got up there, so the agreement's been in place for quite a while.
So it's the agreement between us and the soccer people.
Oh, gotcha.
And
Yep.
now there's two groups that have become one
Sure.
with the new
So
name.
we've made adjustments to the agreement. We had,
Kevin seems to be bringing a lot of name change things.
yeah, I thought you were saying we were involved in merging their name or them merging their names, which I thought,
Oh.
Yeah, I got you. Okay.
Yeah, no, they just merged in August, so we needed to update this agreement with a name change.
All right.
So Kevin, were there any other things that got changed? Prices, usage?
No, the prices will be done pretty much every year when we do field increases or field fee increases. So that's not part of it. The only thing that was different is Tri-City wanted to take out the adult leagues out of the agreement because their focus is youth soccer. And Corey Schlack really is an independent person that runs adult leagues anyway, so he has the majority of those groups. So that was the only other change that's in this agreement.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Kevin, do we typically have facility use agreements with some of our other organizations?
Yes, a lot of them, yep. You know, the independent ones that are kind of the one-offs that rent our facilities, no, they just fill out an agreement per time, but these groups that are specifically using our facilities, extended periods of time, we do have agreements with them, yes. It'd be similar to Fargo Youth Hockey, Fargo Youth Baseball, those types.
Sure.
Kevin, one more question. Is there something in the agreement that refers to insurance? And who's insuring personal property, that kind of thing that's on our property?
I believe it is, yes.
Okay.
That was on page
I'm
4.
looking, but I can't. Oh,
I mean, they just have their
got
general
it.
liability.
Got it, thank you.
Any more questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the agreement with changing the Tri-City United Soccer Club.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any more discussion? Any discussion? Jeff, over.
Commissioner Morgan,
Aye.
Commissioner Dawson,
Aye.
Commissioner Deutsch,
Aye.
Commissioner Rosted,
Yes.
Commissioner Griggs.
Aye. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Number 9, board to consider for approval agreements for Broadway Square. Anna Rasmus Peterson, presenter.
Thank you. So as Broadway Square enters its first year of getting everything up and running and processes in place, we're really trying to focus on a couple things. Building a media archive so we have plenty of photos and videos to use over the course of the next year, to solicit additional sponsorships, to really prove to the public that what we're doing is valuable, people are taking advantage of it, that kind of thing. So these contracts help set that in place, agreements with these companies so that we can acquire those media assets so that we have a provider who works with us regularly on providing technological support for our events and rental events, hopefully. And then also so that we're collecting data, again, to support sponsorships, public knowledge, public information about how our space is used, as well as the Block 9 partners and the Fargo Park District. So that would be John Borghi photographs to collect some photos, really great directed photos of what the space is being used for. Telwell is creating 7 videos for us, very directed, so there's one for sponsorships, one for a year in review, that kind of thing, different amenities. The live wire is to really provide technological support, being on call in case anything goes wrong during our events. We have somebody we can call and get their stat because they're within 2 blocks. And then live gauge, those 2 titles are just so close. Live gauge, which is a couple of devices that are going to be able to tell us what our attendance is at different events. We can target different times of day, tell how long audience engagements with the space are. If we wanted to, we could even narrow it down to like specific portion of the square and how it's being used. So a lot of good data and assets in these. A couple notes on these. They are all non-exclusive. They are all for 1 year. They all include, thanks to that, termination clauses if ever needed. They've all been reviewed by that. And the costs for all of these were included in the already approved budget for 2021. So. And then also, just a couple notes on how they were selected as our vendors. These 4 were organizations that were either already working with and recommended by the Kilbourne Group, the Fargo Parks, and their reputation sort of preceded them in the speciality of what they provided. In the case of Live Gauge, I haven't really heard of anyone else who does that service. So they all had very specific reasons that they were chosen.
Can I ask a question now? I think we discussed previously that Kilbourne was going to be hiring a private security firm or business to make sure everything was running right at the plaza. Mm-hmm. And of course, there are the bid people that are downtown too. And I was just wondering, is there a contract that the Kilbourne organization is, when they're going to begin that? And I was just wondering if you know anything about what it entails.
Yep, they are working, their assets team is working on behalf specifically of the Kilbourne Group and the hotel portion of that, and I think RDO is in on the conversations as well, to provide security from a company called Securitas that's based out of Minneapolis. For those spaces, we're in conversations now to see what any kind of partnership and related costs would look like for the square. We're not included in anything the Kilbourne Group is setting up as far as security goes. So we're looking at kind of a combination approach right now of Fargo Park's maintenance and ops and kind of what that adds to that pool. We're also looking at our Fargo Park's liaison to the Fargo Police Department, how that partnership works. Ask Security and Sentry if that plays into it, or if Securitas is better and equally as affordable for us, or kind of how that conglomeration all works.
There's another aspect with the bid. I think it's starting in April or May, not exactly sure the month, that they're going to have a off-duty police officer in that area patrolling the downtown Fargo to, obviously, they've made aware that some of the issues that they've been dealing with downtown. So the bid has, I think it's 4 days a week, 4 or 5 days a week, that they will be there in the afternoons into the evening times to handle any of those issues that might happen in the plaza.
And that's kind of the challenge, is like making sure that all hours of the day are covered, and that we have, I'm shooting for every 4 hours during daylight, every 2 hours at night, so that somebody is rotatingly present and aware of what's going on. And also trying to really cover, having the space active, we feel will detract a lot of bad behavior, but having that backup of, BID, the police, the Fargo Parks, ASP, Securitas, we'll have a group.
There'll also be security cameras out there too.
Sure. So one other question, for the people who work in the building and then also for those at the hotel, do they access through the parking ramp?
Yes and no. So RDO and a lot of the hotel guests will be in the parking ramp. They can enter on a second floor kind of skyway walk across. They can also enter, I believe, on the north side of the building, and there will be some sort of security protocol in place for that too.
Thank you.
Sure.
So, is there a minimum number of photos John Voorhees going to take? I don't see it spelled out in here.
Yeah, with him we haven't specified amount. Based on what we've already worked with him on, he's more tending to be profuse in his sharing, and he turns them around in 48 hours. So we don't have that specified, and then we could certainly add that.
I don't know what a reasonable number is, but, and I understand quality is going to be much bigger on his list than quantity, but you don't want a situation where, and this is not a John Voorhees statement, this is just generally speaking with whoever we contract with, because I'm going to ask the same thing about the Telwell thing. Mm-hmm. I think laying out at minimum this many events, or at minimum this many photos, because I don't think it says in here how many events or gatherings either, right?
No.
Our expectations might be one thing and his might be the other, and it might be the flip side that he might say, oh my gosh, I've only been one event this month, and am I supposed to be going to more? So I think it would be beneficial to have some, at least just a minimum standard. Sure. Just some kind of guideline that would, we might have some events where we want him to do many more pictures than a different event too. So I want it to be loose, but I think it's beneficial for the expectations to be laid out for both parties.
Totally. And we have had that conversation. Just like the Telwell kind of specified, we want to make sure we get adequate rental pictures. We want to make sure we get adequate movies at the square, that kind of thing. We didn't formalize it as a pendency.
And then what is kind of that out clause? A monthly, is it 30 days that we have?
Yeah, we put 30 days in these agreements to get out.
Yeah.
There's
That's
one that
something
has
that if we're
45
not
days.
getting what we, need or feel we need for the.
Well, and that's another reason I think laying it out ahead of time is just, here's what our expectations are. The same thing with the videos. How long's the video? If we're expecting, if we're paying for 7 videos, are we thinking the video's an hour long, 10 minutes long, 2 minutes long? Is it a TikTok video? Who knows what it is? So I think just getting some kind of something in place that specifies at least a little bit about what we're expecting. And again, I think that benefits both parties.
So knowing photographers, I know they take thousands of photos, and what he will probably want to do is if you specify a certain number of photos per whatever the event is, he'll select the best, and that's what you'd be purchasing. So, controlling it on that end of the initiation wouldn't be the goal, that the end production would be. So the same thing with videographers. They take hours of video and then they edit to what you want. So
the other part of it, in my mind, would be the events. There may be specific events that we know we want you at these events. We want you at the tree lighting. We want you at this event. We're kicking off, ribbon cutting for the ice, whatever it might be. There are certain events we might want to lock in as well. And I know the first year is probably much tougher to gauge what those will be, but if there's some specific ones, that might be something too. I don't know if it necessarily has to go in the contract, but I think having that spelled out ahead of time is going to be a lot easier it might even dictate what day we do certain things. If somebody says, well, Telwell might have more than one person available, but John's John, so if you're counting on one guy, you want to make sure it fits with what we're doing. So.
Yep, we have had those conversations about trying to identify those, but as you say, the first year, really locking in some of these, especially with COVID, is a little bit hard. So.
Yeah.
I also have another question. So, is Park District owner then of this production?
Yep, all the content created is basically work for hire.
Okay, and so then I've been just wondering for a couple of weeks about whether the Park District has a historic archive.
We have a number of photos that over years have been collected and are currently in the NDSU archive.
Okay.
And then also marketing has set up digital photographs and they throughout the year with the brochures and the social media and stuff that we have.
Okay, and so is that identified as Park District specifically, photos from or of? Or is it in the larger collections? Because a lot of it, what's at the Institute is spread out over many collections.
What they took from us was specifically us. I have not asked them how they cataloged it, but my assumption and understanding from when we sent the contract over was that it would be recognized as Park District.
Okay.
But I don't know how far they've gotten through it because it was a year ago, I believe, maybe a year and a half ago, that we took the collection and gave it to them.
Okay, well, so that kind of leads into another question as to whether you're going to create your own archive for this plaza.
Yes, but all the photos, specifically all the photos that John Borby takes, will be logged through marketing, and so they'll go into their archives as a separate Broadway Square collection.
Okay, thank you.
I can just jump in. I understand where Commissioner Dotson's going with the quantitative direction in terms of expectations. I temper that with a little bit of caution. I would prefer, when you're talking about art, I would prefer quality over quantity. If we get into a number numbers game. Oh, I gotta get 10 photos delivered, or I gotta do 5 7-minute videos. Suddenly that changes the dynamic. And so I just be careful on how far we go with that. I understand what she's getting at. I think that makes sense. But if you let that drive the output, then it could work negatively in terms of what we're trying to accomplish.
That just assumes, since Anna is in charge of all of this, that you're like one-on-one working with it, saying this is going to be a big event. I want to make sure we've got video and photography done.
Definitely,
And
and we,
communicating that.
John Morty specifically and I have talked about the process of going to submit an event schedule and how far out it needs to be to him by so he can plan accordingly. Yeah.
Okay. Any more questions? Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the 4 media and technology contract and service agreements between Fargo Parks, Broadway Square, and John Borley Studios, Tello, Livewire, and Live Gauge as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any discussion? Jeff, full board?
Commissioner Morgan,
Aye.
Commissioner Dawson,
Aye.
Commissioner Deutsch,
Aye.
Commissioner Rosted,
Yes.
Commissioner Griggs.
Aye. Motion carried.
Before we move on, what's our latest update on Broadway Square? I drove by there over the weekend. It looks like they're continuing construction. Do we have just a quick update on what's going on?
Sure. They have finally, probably about 85 to 90% finished what's below ground, and are starting to work on the exciting fun part that we can see above ground. They've been doing a lot of concrete pours, doing the footings for the pavilion. The square spouts, the fountains are in. They are planning, a lot of things are happening October 19th and November 9th. I believe it's October 19th, the turf is going to be laid. What else? They're testing the spouts and then they're going to winterize them and do some training with our staff to make sure we know how to operate them. And then November 9th, the skate shack and the equipment and everything for the rink install is going to arrive. And so you'll see a lot of progress and in a really quick time. The ice rink install, just because of the added first year portion of that and working out the issues that arise and also the training is probably going to take about 3 weeks this year. So all kinds of moving parts that are happening.
It'll start looking like a place
Yes.
instead of a
Shifting the file, yes.
It really is changing the landscape downtown.
Pretty exciting.
It is. Thank you. All right, number 10, board to consider for approval sub-grant agreement with the North Dakota Department of Emergency Services for the 2020 spring flood, which seems like a lifetime ago.
I know it does.
And a minor problem.
And little.
So Commissioners, in your packets, a sub-grant agreement with North Dakota Emergency Services for the spring flooding. The agreement is similar to the sub-grant agreement that we'd signed previous in the year for COVID. It's pretty much the same agreement, just swapping out the project numbers. But it lays out the role and responsibilities of the Park District and the North Dakota Emergency Services, and it's required that we sign it in order to be eligible for funding. So to date, we've been working with North Dakota Emergency Services, submitting our expenses. We've submitted about $50,000 worth of expenses from last year, or for the spring. There's still some sandbag costs that we're still working on disposing of, so there could be a little more, but once emergency services starts their review process, we go up or down based on the data. So we'll continue working with them, but just looking for approval to sign this agreement and so we can all go the funding.
Any questions? Remember when the biggest problem was, can we sandbag at Edgewood?
Good times.
Good times, that's right.
Those were the days. Do we have a motion to approve?
I will approve the sub-grant agreement with the Department of Emergency Services for the grant 2025.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any discussion? Jeff, pull the board.
Commissioner Morgan,
Aye.
Commissioner Dawson,
Aye.
Commissioner Deutsch, Commissioner Rosted,
Yeah.
Commissioner Graves.
Aye, motion carried.
Move to adjourn.
Good old days.
Back to normal.
Good old days.
Meeting adjourned.
Very easy to.
6:10.
For a story.